Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Gluck from SBNation.com. Welcome back, or if you're first time, welcome to AmpUp88.com. This is the place where you come to amp up before the race every week. Just a reminder here before we get started with things, there's a few cool things about the site that we like to tell you every week, and one of those that I lead off with is that there's a Dale Jr. autographed item that they give away on AmpUp88.com every single day. So he signed a bunch of stuff. You guys can win it. I don't know if you guys have won any already from being on there, but let me know in the chat, see if you have and what you've won. There's also Off the Track video series. This week it's Chris Heroy, who's the engineer, and he's talking about Daytona and everything that goes into that race. And then TJ Majors, the spotter, his Twitter feed is on there. And of course we have the chats. Next week's going to be Ken Howes, who's the vice president of competition at Hendricks. That's going to be a really cool one. But right now, Walt Smith, the pit crew coordinator for the 5 and 88 teams. Is that the correct title? Did I get that right?
That's correct.
Okay, good. So before we get started, could you tell me what is a pit crew coordinator? What do you do?
Basically what a pit crew coordinator does is we handle anything that's involved in keeping a pit crew top-notch, functioning properly, from training the guys as far as from the minutest little detail to counting steps around the car, anything that generates speed for the pit crew. Speed, consistency, accuracy. Our goal is to actually strive for perfection all the time, which, as you know, is hard to attain, but we break down films, we help the pit crew guys as far as any medical needs, we channel them to the right doctors. Just keep them healthy and performing at top level is what we do.
So really, really precise kind of stuff, every movement and all.
Everything is, we break down films after the race on Mondays. We'll come in, we'll sit down as a team, break down films, look for missteps, look for if excess lug nuts are missed, why did it happen? Was the gun properly held? Was what could happen to make something go wrong? We analyze that, we break it down. At the racetrack itself, I'm scanning, I'm going back and forth from pit to pit, and I'm looking at film, and if I catch something, if a tire carrier has a bad index or something goes wrong, I want to correct it right there. So I'll point it up, we'll pull it up on the TV screen, show them exactly what they're doing wrong, and hopefully eliminate a whole night of mistakes because somebody's form has gone bad for one particular reason.
Okay. Well, we have some questions now from Junior Nation, who's looks small through this camera, but there's a lot of them.
Okay.
So first one we have is J. Palm Jr., and he's wondering what led you to becoming a pit crew coach. What's your background, or how did you get to this point?
Well, actually, Jay, believe it or not, it's a funny deal. I spent 20 years as an over-the-wall pit crew guy. Basically every job that you can do except for catch can. I was a tire changer, jack man most of my career, fuel man, and so forth, tire carrier. And back in the late 80s, early 90s, Gary Dehart was the crew chief of the 5 car where I was working. And that's about the same time that Andy Papadopoulos came over at the 24 car, and the crew chiefs got together and just, hey, crew guys, let's figure out some way to clean this up. There's got to be something to make it work better, function better, so on and so forth. And Andy took it to a full-time level as far as that was his job, and I was trying to do bits and pieces, still be a jack man at the time, still do help the 5 car at that time. And that's how I evolved into it. It was more or less thrust onto me. My background, I've actually owned 2 fitness centers for 30 years now.
Wow.
So I've got a background in fitness and run that. I actually have people running them for me now, but my whole life has always been evolved around athletics and that type of activity.
Okay. Our next question is from Sun VGG, and he wants to know, have you ever worked for Dale Sr.?
Actually, I have. In 1998, I left Hendrick Motorsports, and Dale Sr. hired me to run his program at Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, with a startup driver named Steve Park, Pennzoil as a sponsor. And I spent from '98 until this past year, till the end of last year, over there, and was fortunate enough to get hired back on here at Hendrick. So kind of coming back home more or less. But yes, I was fortunate enough to work for Dale Sr., and he was just a fantastic individual, and he was a real inspiration.
What was he like to work for?
To work for, he was one of the most funny, laid-back, practical, joking kind of guys you would ever see. It was always, Dale Sr. had a mentality where, I guess you call it farm strong or country strong. Mm-hmm. His idea of working out was bulldozer, shoveling hay, dirt, manure, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. That was his idea of a hard workout. So here I come on board with, I want to buy weight equipment, I want to buy this and this, make a gym, a functional gym, and everything else. So Dale would do a lot of things he could to show that country strong beat fitness strong anytime. Okay. So we had an ongoing battle, but he was a practical joker and just a fun guy to be around.
Let's see, Jay Backer here wants to know, how many hours a week do you spend watching and breaking down the film of pit stops?
We probably break down film in addition to the film breakdown we do, which is the main, and that'll go 2 weeks ago at Sonoma. We had 3 stops per team. You go to Daytona where you might have 12 or 13 stops per team. So it depends on the racetrack. Let's say a good average of 3.5 hours just breaking down film along those lines. Then we'll go back and we actually have a sheet where we punch in all the numbers, and we've got a set of parameters that we use. They're color-coded green, yellow, and red. Green is excellent, which is what we strive for at all times. Yellow is average. Red, we've got an issue. It might be 2 extra lug nuts on a pit stop. On one particular pit stop, we'll give a tire changer a red. So we fill all those sheets out, have that all done. We have helmet cams. All our tire changers wear a helmet cam. So we go in there and it basically focuses on the tire changer hitting 5 lug nuts on, the tire carrier indexing the wheel, 5 lug nuts off. That might add another hour to 2 hours a week. So probably 5 to 7 hours a week.
Wow.
We're looking at film.
So is it all based on technique, or does time factor into it when you're judging what is a good pit stop? Because let's say somebody maybe makes a mistake or minor mistake, but it's still the pit stop is finished in a really good time. What is that, an excellent, or is that where does that fall under? That
would fall under, as far as a fast pit stop with 1 or 2 mistakes, it would still be an excellent pit stop.
Okay.
Now the individual involved who had the couple little blunders, whatever you want to call it, we would monitor that and say, okay, why are you missing lug nuts? Why are you missing your index? So on and so forth. And we'd keep an eye on that. But a good pit stop is a good pit stop time-wise. And normally a crew chief won't complain too much if an extra lug nut or 2 is hit. Pit coaches, on the other hand, we're always striving for better and better and better. I believe it was 3-4 races ago, we had all 4 of our tire changers not miss a single lug nut. Wow. In the entire race, which that's incredible. Then we've had races where we've had to miss 14 lug nuts in a race, so you can see where that would be a huge problem.
Yeah. The next question is from Sheck Diddy 24. That's a great name, Sheck Diddy.
Yes.
I haven't heard that one on this before. That's good. He or she, I don't know, Sheck Diddy, I guess he, wants to know, what other technology do you use to help analyze and break down pit stops? Is it all just your video stuff, or?
Yeah, it's basically your video, your helmet cams, your overhead cams, frame by frame on your computer and things like that.
Is there special software that you guys
There
have?
actually is. We don't actually use it. There is several companies out there that basically have specialized software, and it's basically it does what we do with stopwatches, but you push the button on a computer to do it. So as far as my opinion, it's a lot of money you pay for doing what we do with a stopwatch anyway. And over here, we've got very, very experienced coaching staff. We know what we're looking for and so forth, so we can get it done just as easily that way.
JK1 wants to know, what are the most common errors that a pit crew makes?
The most common errors are obviously missed lug nuts, but you think of what a tire changer does. He has to hit 5 lug nuts off, 5 lug nuts on, 2 different wheels. Their hand speed off is normally about a 1.2 seconds.
Wow.
5 lug nuts, 1.2 seconds off. Normally their on speed is a little bit quicker, okay? About 1.0 to 1.1 on. So you do that times 2 wheels. You do that times, so that's 20 lug nuts per pit stop times a number, say times 10 pit stops, 200 lug nuts, 200 possible chances to make a mistake.
Yeah.
Compare that to a jack man. He has to hit 2 jack stops. That's 20 possible chances of making a mistake. Gas man, 10 plug-ins, or actually 2 cans, 20 plug-ins. So the most common is the lug nut issue, but it's just by sheer numbers that the tire changer has so many opportunities to make a mistake.
So the fans out there, we always hear about, you know, a guy didn't get all the lug nuts tight or some situation like that. How many, I mean, are we to assume that there's a lot of cars rolling around out there where they haven't got all the lug nuts tight, or when you say they missed a lug nut, is it just one where they have to go back and make sure?
It goes both ways.
Okay.
It goes both ways. What I was referring to, obviously, was hitting 6 lug nuts off. In other words, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the wheel comes off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the wheel comes off. That's what I'm assuming. Now, there are lots of times, numerous times, and it's a pit coach's nightmare, it's a crew chief's nightmare. If it happens, the pit coach is being called up to the top of the pit box to do a lot of explaining to a crew chief. You turn your radio off because the driver is saying a lot of really not nice things, and but there's a lot of times that, and you'll see loose wheels. Car had one this past week. I won't name the car, but the wheel was left so loose. The driver was complaining. The car came down pit road. The tire actually went flat. When the tire came down pit road and they jacked it up, the tire actually fell off. And
like that.
Like that, like this microphone just fell off. But it fell off, and the 5 lug nuts were still holding the wheel, so the wheel actually broke. If you think about the spokes of a wheel, the wheel broke, the car got jacked up, the wheel fell in the tire changer's lap.
Wow. And
then he had to go and actually hit the 5 lug nuts to get the back of the wheel off and exchange the wheels. So normally that happens, either a tire changer hits too fast, a tire changer gets 3 lug nuts tight instead of 5. A jackman could possibly drop the jack too early, which nowadays is not a big a deal as it used to be. Back several years ago, we used to drop the jack on 1 lug nut. This is many years ago. Now you wait till 5 are hit, and then the jackman. So normally a jackman is pretty clear. If a jackman messes it up, it's on the left side where he's excited. He sees one of the competitive cars coming down pit road or getting out of pit road, and he's like, we got to beat him, and he'll drop it, and one of your tire changers may get stabby. So, yeah, that's
interesting.
Yeah.
Dances with Kat, which I know is a weird name, but she actually asks a question every single week on here.
Great.
So thank you.
Glad to have somebody involved all the time.
Yeah. She wants to know, do most of the pit crew guys have second jobs during the off season, or is this a full-time, year-round type thing, or what?
Sport-wide, I would say it's probably 30 to 40% have outside jobs. On the 88 car, we have 2 individuals who are outside the company. Mark Jacobs, who is our jack man, and Bus, our rear Matt Myers, who's our rear tire carrier, has his own construction company. The rest of them are all in-house full-time guys. It depends on the team, the company. We go for the best possible guys, like really most teams do. So a lot of teams now, though, have gone to where if you find an exceptional pit crew guy, they'll find a full-time job for them to keep them here so you can practice them whenever you want. If we have rain, if we have a 10 o'clock practice scheduled and we have rain at 9:50, those guys don't want to wait around 2 hours or 3 hours for the pit practice area to dry out. So they're wanting to go. We have to bring them back. This way you've got them right there so you're not as restricted.
I see. Okay. By the way, I know this is flying by, but we're already halfway through our chat. This is Walt Smith. He's a pit crew coordinator for the 5 and 88 teams. You are on ampupthe88.com, where you come to amp up for the race each week. So keep the questions coming. We obviously have a lot of good questions that are coming on here. Let's see. Submarine Mike would like to know, what, if any, penalties, he says in quotes, are there for a team member that screws up a pit stop on race day? Like, does he have to, when he come back on Monday, does he have to do extra push-ups or anything like that? What's the deal?
No, it's there really are no penalties. There is the ultimate penalty, obviously, is your job if you continue to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. What we expect our pit crew guys to do in such a short period of time, there's going to be mistakes, like we discussed a little while ago. But no, there's no penalty. They more or less beat themselves up really more than we beat them up. They strive to be perfect all the time, and when they're not, they really get upset with themselves. So actually, in that instance, we're more of a father figure trying to calm them down and say, hey, it's all right. Let's fix the problem and not do it again.
Right. MRH88 wants to know, what's the craziest or funniest thing you've seen happen on pit road? I bet you've seen a lot of stuff.
I've seen a lot of stuff.
How about just one?
Craziest thing that I've ever seen happen on pit road. It was back. It was back about 7-8 years ago, and it was actually 3 races back to back to back. It was a gentleman that I had just trained as a jackman, ex-college football player, just really top-notch athlete all the way around. He got hit by his own driver the first 3 races he was in. The driver was a young driver, was a rookie driver, very, very aggressive, and just plowed right through the sign, plowed right through him. He got up, dusted himself off, and went on. 3
times?
The first 3 races he was in, yeah. I mean, you sit and think about it, it's really not funny. He never got hurt, but yeah, I mean, guys get hurt. I actually also, believe it or not, another real funny story was I'm also involved with JR Motorsports, which is Dale Jr.'s nationwide team. We had our catch can man on that particular team. This was about 1.5 years ago. Get some gas spilled on his glove. And we have a scenario where if it's a certain amount of gas, we'll pull tires. So he went to pull the left tire, the left rear tire of the car with gasoline on his hand, and the wheel was very, very hot because it was one of those hot racetrack. His glove ignited.
Wow.
And he pulled the tire off, set the tire down, and was walking up and down. We were watching him in the pit, on the pit camera with his hand on fire, and he didn't even know it. His glove was burning. And when he finally did realize it, of course, the normal try to put your hand out deal, which was kind of humorous. And again, he wasn't hurt. That's the only reason I say these are humorous things.
Right. Well, speaking of junior motorsports, we have a question from ERV Mary here, who says, how do you prepare a Cup pit crew to get ready for a nationwide race like for the number 3 Wrangler? I assume maybe she knows some information that that's going to be pitted by his Cup crew.
The 88 car will be pitting the Wrangler car this past weekend, and basically it's I prepare them the same way. I don't do anything special with them. We're going to use our scenarios, our playbook from Hendrick Motorsports over there. The backup people, the support people, behind the wall people will be different than we're used to using. So that will be more of of a challenge is making sure all those guys are in sync than our guys itself. The fuel cans in the Nationwide Series are a smaller diameter, so they don't flow as fast. So it's going to throw our timing off a little bit there with our fuel guys, but other than that, everything else is really the same.
Okay. Well, how about DRL De Boer wants to know, is there any change to the routine between the old Nationwide cars and the new car that's going to be making its debut? Is that basically a similar type setup?
Yeah, it'll be a similar type setup. The older Nationwide cars, left side of the car, you would always have a problem at certain tracks where you'd have maybe 3.5 inches to 4 inches of height for your jack stop. That's from the ground to the bottom of the jack stop. So when you have that and you have a jack that its flat height is 3.5 inches,
oh wow,
you don't have a whole lot of room to play with. So we would go with flat tire jacks, which had a profile of about 2 inches on them. But still, low air pressure in those tires, sometimes it's incredibly hard, and younger jackmen would have a harder time. A lot of times they'd miss the left side jack stop, which leads to a slow pit stop. You don't have that anymore with the COTs. The COTs are the same height, right side and left side, so it eliminates a lot of those mistakes. Now that the wing is gone, when the wing first came out, we had a lot of trouble as far as our catch can guys reaching over, putting the wedge wrenches in, doing adjustments, things like that. That was difficult. The wing's gone now, so now you got the spoiler, so that makes it easier for them. So really, it won't be anything great.
Walt, earlier you talked about Dale Sr. and working under him. Dale Jr. fan forever would like to know if you see any similarities in Dale Jr. with any of the qualities that you mentioned about his dad.
I do. His desire to be successful, his desire to win, the tenacity. I know sometimes he gets a bad rap because of his dad, and it's always hard to live in your very famous dad's shadow, but he's just done a fantastic job with it. And the expectations, I remember when he was brought up, you know, when he first got his first Cup ride over there, and just the pressure that's always on Dale Jr. is phenomenal. So Dale Jr. wants to win, and Dale Jr. strives to win, and AMP fans, just get ready. I think it's going to be a really good second half of the year. I just get that feeling from radio communications, the way the car is run, and the team is very, very solid behind them. So I'm pretty excited about this. I'm having flashbacks to when we won 6 races, you know, Dale Jr.'s second and third year, and just we could do no wrong. And I just have that feeling, that same feeling again. So I'm excited.
I'll bet you just made the chat blow up. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you guys can hear that on the chat, but right now we're being bombarded by rain and thunder, so we're lucky we're in here with you guys chatting. Keep the questions coming. We have time for a few more. Let's see. M. Schechter 24 wants to know how many reds, you know, the bad stops you were talking about, could a pit crew member have before being let go? I mean, is there a certain number where you?
No. There's not a certain number. We grade them out. We will grade out an entire pit stop, a day's worth of work on pit road. So for this past weekend, for example, we had a team have graded out at a 94, a team graded out at an 85. Okay, the 94 was a few less reds is what it was. The 85, obviously, we had a couple of issues with one of our tire changers. We had a couple of issues with one of our tire carriers. Guys who have been solid for the past 12 weeks in a row. You're not going to crucify them for that. We're going to fix it. They did an extra practice today. We just got done before the rains came, and we worked on what their issues were, tried to identify it. And we went out there. Actually, when I was talking about breaking down film before, I forgot to mention that we break down our pit practices the same way we break down our race film.
So the pressure's on in practice.
So the pressure's on them in practice as well. And when we were out there at practice, we noticed that tire changer's gun was more or less floating in his hand instead of having a rigid locked wrist. The changer in question hit so incredibly hard. He's such a powerful guy that when that gun starts moving around, he was getting lug nuts caught in his socket.
Okay.
Is what was happening. And so we identified it. We brought it to his attention. We showed him on film, okay, look at this. Look at how you used to do it. Look at how you do it now. And here's your problem. So hopefully it's fixed. Hopefully you'll see them back up in the 90 percentile, which is where they've been for most of the year.
Okay. Well, Flate23 has a question, and obviously you can't, this could take a long time to answer this question, so, but how can you make Junior Nation buff, he wants to know. I mean, is there any advice for maybe me, I don't go to the gym very often, or people out there, what can we do to keep ourselves in good shape? Do you have any just general tips for us?
General tips, watch what you eat. Diet is so critically important. Watch what you eat, watch what you drink. Even if you can walk, even if you can do anything for 20 to 30 minutes a day, it's a great stress reliever. It helps you to lose weight, and it's tough mentally. It is really, really tough mentally to get yourself in shape. But if you can start with something, and the big thing that normally turns most people off is they try too much too soon, and they get bored right away, they get sore, whatever the case may be, and it's easy to have an excuse. If you start off really, really light, something that you can live with, that's not going to take a lot of your time away, and don't go to brand X restaurant and eat a double cheeseburger with all the trimmings 3 days a week. Cut it down to 1 day a week, and little common sense things. Get started slow, develop that as part of a lifestyle, and then you can expand it from there.
Okay. I'm going to have to go watch this back in the archive and take notes on this. I assume you probably drink the sugar-free amp if it comes
I drink the
down to
sugar-free amp. I try to stay away from a whole lot of sugar.
Yeah.
I'll go out, and if I go out to eat, I don't use butter. I'll use Tabasco or Texas Pete, or I'll pour that on my baked potato. Everybody looks at me like, wow, you're really weird, but it tastes good, and it's, you don't have the honey glazed or the butter or whatever you're putting on it, and the calories add up.
Yeah. Sun VGG has another question and wants to know, does Lance ever yell at you on race day if the pit guys mess up?
Yes.
Yes.
Believe it or not, it's been one time this year, and actually it would have been another time, but I was in the 5-car pits at the time that they did the mess up, and
so out of sight. So
out of sight, out of mind. But Lance is sneaky. I'm stationed out of the 88-car hauler, so he waits for me to go put my radio up, and he'll address the matter after that. But he does it in a constructive and caring way. So, he's as concerned, he wants perfection as we are. And, we expect the drivers to do well, we expect the crew to do well, we expect the cars to be set up. And we live in an environment where, perfection is hard to attain, but you need to attain it.
Right.
That's how you win races.
Well, Backbeat 555 is wondering, how about Dale Jr.? Does he ever give you guys any feedback?
Yes. Yes, Dale Jr. will give you positive feedback. He'll give you negative feedback. If you can ever scan Dale Jr.'s radio, he is a riot. He is hilarious. This past weekend, he wasn't exactly happy with a certain air pressure adjustment, so he made a suggestion that we use Loctite and the little valve cap that you put on to put air pressure in the tires. He wanted them Loctited down so you just sit there and he's a practical joker. And a lot of that came from his dad.
Yeah.
So he is fans, junior fans, get a scanner. Get a scanner if you're at the racetrack and listen to him sometime. You'll have a ball.
Well, let's see. We only have time for maybe just a couple more questions here. Let's see. Backbeat 555 again is asking, the pit crew coordinator. A couple weeks ago we had Mark Malden in your seat. and I guess he's technically the pit crew coach.
Now it's a weird scenario. We're both coordinators.
Okay.
We both do basically the same thing. Our job is so I'll work with the jackmen, the fuelers, and help him with the carriers and the changers, and we kind of split up the workload. A lot of these teams now, have multiple coaches. The 24-48 have multiple coaches. Roush, Gibbs, multiple coaches. So we've got the same title, basically the same responsibilities. We just break down the workload so that we can be more precise. If you sit and think about 7 guys jumping over the wall, especially in practice, 7 guys jumping over the wall, doing something in 12.5 to 13 seconds, it's hard to, what did this guy do wrong? What did this guy do right? It's hard to monitor it all.
Yeah.
And this way it gives us 2 sets of eyes. We can catch things quicker. Things on film. You start viewing film for 2-3 hours a day, you miss stuff. Fresh set of eyes, he can catch something or I can catch something. So,
right.
It's basically the same job, coordinator. We both handle basically the performance of our pit crews.
Okay. And the last question here is going to be from Dances with Kat again. And she wants to know, do you ever wish you could practice at a real track like Bristol? Some of these maybe narrower pit stalls, or is the place you have here
practice pit stops?
Yeah.
We've practiced pit stops. We've leased Concord Motor Speedway.
Okay.
And practiced there. So
does that make a difference in?
Not really, because our pit practice area is, it's a great pit practice area. We've got a cover over us, so the sun's not beating down on you all day. It gets hot is hot, but when you don't have the sun beating down on you, but it's narrow. Okay, it's a very narrow area where when we start doing different scenarios, nose of the car in and so forth, you're really tight, and it allows our guys to adapt to that type of environment. So I don't think there would be a huge advantage to practicing at a speedway unless you had multiple cars practicing with you.
Oh, okay.
That's the only thing that we don't do, but we don't trust anybody to drive their personal car behind us or another pit practice car. So
yeah, I wouldn't either.
No, absolutely not.
Well, cool. Well, thank you very much for coming and obviously gave us a lot of information, learned a lot, so that was really awesome. And thank you, Junior Nation, for all the great questions. Be sure to come back to ampup88.com next week when we'll have Ken Howes, who's the Vice President of Competition. That's a pretty good guest, right?
That'd be a great guest. A lot of tough questions for Ken now.
Yeah, what should we ask him?
Oh, I'm not going to say.
Okay.
I'm going to allow the AMP fans to get the questions. They have some good ones.
Okay. And that chat's going to be at 12:30 next Wednesday. That's July 7th. So be sure to come back for that. And again, Walt, thank you very much. And thank you, Junior Nation. Amp up for the race. Daytona's going to be a big one, so we'll look forward to it, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.